It is one of the youngest lands on Earth, forged by fire and ice, where mountains rise straight from the sea. From the adrenaline of Queenstown to the deep, echoing silence of the fjords, Aotearoa, New Zealand is a place that insists you feel alive. But this land is more than scenery. It is spirit. It is resistance. It is the home of the warrior ethos, embodied by All Blacks, the most dominant team in sporting history. With a winning record unmatched across a century, they do not just play rugby, they arrive. Before every battle, the haka, a challenge, a line drawn between past and present, a reminder that this strength was inherited. But behind the beauty, behind the ritual and the roar, lies a deeper story. One of loss, of survival, of leadership when a people stood on the brink. And to understand the soul of this land, you must meet the woman who refused to let her people disappear. Te Puea Hērangi. Born into the royal lineage of the Kingitanga, she was not a leader because of blood alone. She became one through will, sacrifice, and defiance. Te Puea Hērangi came of age at a time when her people were already at war. Not overseas, but at home. The land confiscations were still raw. Communities were fractured. Disease, poverty, and displacement had hollowed out entire Iwi. The Maori King movement, once a shield against colonization, was fading, starved of land, resources, and hope. Te Puea did not inherit stability. She inherited collapse. And instead of mourning what was lost, she chose to build what had been denied. On the swampy banks of the Waikato River, land no one else wanted, she envisioned a center of renewal, a home, a future. This place would become Turangawaewae, a place to stand, not a symbol, a foundation. Then, as Europe tore itself apart, another demand arrived. Between 1917 and 1918, the British Empire called on Maori men to fight in a war overseas, to defend a crown, a country, an empire that had taken everything from them. Te Puea refused, not out of rebellion, but out of principle. She asked a question no one wanted to answer. How do you fight for a nation that has already taken your land? They called her stubborn. They called her dangerous. She was neither. She was clear. They tell us to fight for king and country, she said. We have a king, but we have no country. It has been taken. This is the story of Turangawaewae and the woman who would not allow the Maori King movement to disappear quietly into history. The government did not negotiate. They sent the police. It was 1918. Armed constables marched into the settlement to arrest those who refused the draft. The tension was thick enough to choke on. One spark could have turned the paddock into a battlefield. But Te Puea Hērangi gave an order that required more courage than fighting. Sit, she told them. Do not raise a hand. Do not speak. Let them do what they must. Passive resistance, not surrender, discipline. She watched as her brothers, her cousins, the strength of the tribe, were handcuffed and marched away to prison. She did not cry, she stood watch. But if the raids were a blow to the heart, what came next was a blow to the soul. Late 1918. The Great War ended, and with the ships came something deadlier than bullets. The Spanish flu. It swept through the Waikato like a bushfire. In weeks, hundreds died. Te Puea was left in a settlement of ghosts. The men were imprisoned, the elders were dying, and the children were alone. She could have given up. Most leaders would have broken. Instead, she gathered the orphans, dozens of them. She became a mother to a generation without parents, and she made them a promise. We will build a future so bright, the world will have to see us. She looked to Ngaruawahia, to land choked with blackberry, gorse, and deep mud. People said it was useless. Te Puea saw a parliament. She mobilized everyone, the widows, the children, the few men left. They cleared the scrub by hand. They drained the swamp with shovels. They slept in tents, worked in rain, and ate whatever they could find. It was brutal work, but slowly, out of the mud, pillars rose. Carvings took shape. The meeting house, Mahinarangi, began to stand. It was more than a building. It was a declaration. To the government, it said, "We are still here." To her people, it said, "You still belong." Te Puea did not just build a marae, she rebuilt the backbone of a people. And today, Turangawaewae stands not as a relic of the past, but as proof that even when everything is taken, mana cannot be confiscated. They had built their house. They had reclaimed their dignity. But Te Puea Hērangi knew a hard truth. You cannot eat pride. Her people were still poor. The land that remained was rough, broken, and burdened by debt. The government expected them to fail, expected the so-called Maori problem to solve itself through hunger and exhaustion. Te Puea had other plans. She didn't just want a place to stand, she wanted a way to live. She launched land development schemes that looked like madness on paper. She took raw volcanic scrub, land farmers called useless, and she put her people to work on it. She didn't lead from an office. She was in the gumboots, in the mud, working until her hands bled alongside the orphans she had raised. She told them, "Work is the only way we survive. If we feed the land will feed us." And slowly the scrub became pasture. The swamp became dairy land. Debt turned into profit. But full stomachs were not enough. She knew she had to restore what poverty and policy had tried to erase. For decades, Maori had been told their culture was dying, that success meant becoming more pakeha. Te Puea said no. She revived the art of waka building, carving great canoes when others said the knowledge was lost. She formed kapa haka groups, sending them across the country to raise funds and pride. She made her people sing, when history had given them every reason to be silent. And something shifted. The government that once called her dangerous, the officials who had sent police to her door, began to visit, not with handcuffs, but with respect. They saw order, they saw industry, they saw power. The stubborn princess became the mother. Te Puea proved that progress did not require surrender. That culture was not a weight, it was a compass. By the 1930s, she was no longer just leading a people out of survival. She was leading a renaissance. She had saved the past. Now she was securing the future. By the 1940s, the swamp was gone. In its place stood a thriving community. Farms, homes, schools. What had once been mud and sickness had become a future. Te Puea Hērangi had done what many said could not be done. But away from the politics and the projects, there was a sacrifice few spoke of. Te Puea never had children of her own. The woman who saved a generation left no heir of her own blood. And yet, if you asked the people of Ngaruawahia, they would tell you she had hundreds. The orphans she raised, the families she fed, the children who grew up calling her mother. She didn't just rebuild a people, she adopted them. Beside her through it all stood Rawiri Katipa, her husband, her anchor. While she confronted governments and reshaped futures, he was the quiet strength in the storm, constant, loyal, unshaken. In 1952, after a lifetime of struggle and service, Te Puea laid down her burden. She was 69 years old. The country stopped. Thousands gathered at Turangawaewae. Pakeha politicians stood alongside Maori elders, heads bowed for a woman who had forced a nation to look itself in the mirror. She took a dying ember and turned it into a fire that still burns. Because of her, the Kingitanga is not a relic. It is alive. It is political. It is a people who know exactly who they are. Te Puea taught us that leadership is not measured by the power you claim, but by the lives you lift. She remains written into the soul of this land, the princess, the worker, the mother, a woman who refused to let her people disappear. We leave Aotearoa now. We leave behind a woman who taught us that resistance can be quiet, that leadership can build instead of burn, and that a people only disappear when they are forgotten. Te Puea Hērangi did not chase power. She carried responsibility. And because of that, her story does not end. But the road keeps moving. Our journey now takes us far from this land, across oceans, into another country with another reputation. A place known for calm streets, strong democracy, and silence. But silence has a way of hiding things. In Uruguay, a single crime cracked that calm, a disappearance that refused to stay quiet, a moment when the shadows pushed back. We're not ready to tell that story yet, but we're heading south to find it. Because every nation has a moment when it's forced to choose what kind of truth it can live with. And some truths wait patiently. We'll see you there. Until then, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, always know where you stand.